Yeah, so this is a piece that I cut recently. We had 2 units. It's up the Kalama in Washington State, off the 6400 road system. And they were joining units. This is the second one, both of them combination units. So this is a block here that I was working on. It was a pretty good sized piece, really. It was pretty decent ground. The wood on these units was a little bit small in general, and this was no exception. But, so what I'm doing here, I'm spending a lot of time, as you guys can tell if you're sticking with me this far, to get up this little pitch. And, so I'm coming off of the lower spur and trying to climb my way into the bottom of this block, and it just was it would have been much easier for me to do than to try to come down from the top. And but so the way it worked out, I had one shot to get up in there. Yeah, it's funny, it never really looks all that steep on the video, but this was a steep little pitch. There was it looked like an old cat road come down through where I wanted to climb up right at the end of this lower spur. And you never can tell with those old cat roads whether it's cut or whether it's fill. If it's fill, it's loose, and just terrible traction. It's winter time now, so the soil's pretty wet. This is pretty rich soil. So the long and the short of it was I had one shot. I really wanted to make it work, and so I was doing everything. I was literally grabbing at straws, and dicing them up in the trail mix there. What I'm doing, I'm favoring that left-hand side because it dropped off there, and so my right side going up the hill is a little bit higher. So I'm just dicing up trail mix underneath my left track to just give me something to keep me leveled up, and give myself a little bit of traction. I think I pulled myself up a couple times, but it all worked out. That's the thing about that trail mix, man. It really, if you're careful, and it's going to be tough, so you use that, in a preemptive manner. It really is pretty amazing, and so it worked out. It got me up there. I think I'm just about at the top now, but I didn't know while I was doing it whether I was going to make it or not, because it kind of, it was fairly reasonable right down by the road, but then it just pitched, and those little pitches can really, change it pretty dramatically in terms of traction. So yeah, I got up in there finally, and so this kind of had, looking up the hill off to my left, there was a real sharp break that dropped down into kind of an alder draw, and so that was handfall. And then looking down the hill and off to my right, from right here, I had a cut bank above that, the end of that spur. There's an old yarder setting down there, and so that was like a 25-foot cut bank, and it had slumped off pretty good. So there was kind of a row of trees, right there on the top that were kind of basically hanging out in the air, and that's one of those cases I'm really looking forward to being lined up. There's always a possibility that something like that could let go on you, and down you'd go. Having a little bit of insurance there is definitely something I'm looking forward to. But that all worked out fine too. Some of these things I'm talking about are, components of why I didn't want to come down from the top, because, as I've said before, getting started on a unit is really the toughest part, and I really like it to be organized right through. I don't want to make a mess. This I was cutting for the shovel, but it was dicey enough that we weren't quite sure if the shovel, will be able to get it or not. So even though I was cutting it for the shovel, the yarder might very well end up picking it up. So I'm looking down the hill. I'm quartering it to the right, and because that's the way the road system is, and they'd if it does get yarded, they'd be logging their way in on it, and so the wood's quartered to the right, so they'd be coming into butts. And it is kind of fun. This one, when I got it cut out, it was a pretty good sized block. I think it might have been 10 acres or something like that. And on these combo units, that's a pretty good sized chunk. I get everything I can, but a lot of times I'm just chasing a ridge, a little bit of a saddle or something where the grade is conducive for me to go down there and get all I can. And, but this, it opened up. It was pretty good size, and as you went out on the road system, if there was daylight, it looked nice when you looked back on it. It was well organized. I mean, it would grapple yard like nobody's business, but of course it'll shovel log, and even, the guys will be happy if they have to set chokers on it too. So. Yeah, these are these 2 or 3 trees here. You can't see it now, of course, but they're, the roots are hanging out in thin air, and so again, I'm using that trail mix just to kind of spread that weight out a little bit and give myself plenty of grip. Cross my fingers, unhook them, and it all worked out. As I'm cutting these units now, laying them out, I'm thinking a lot about tethering, and I did want to kind of just put this out to you guys that are watching. If you are lined up, I'd be interested in if you wanted to share your experiences with me, and because it won't be long, and I'll be trying to figure it out on my own. And I think a lot about how to get started, because as I've said numerous times, that's always the hardest part, and I think it's actually the most important part. Getting the block off to a good start just makes a hell of a difference as the unit progresses, and as the logging comes in behind you, in terms of behind the cutting. If you got started right, it just makes a hell of a difference for the guys that are trying to pick it up. So I think a lot about how to get started. I've got some ideas, but of course I don't know yet. And, Summit will give me some direction, I think, when we take delivery. But yeah, if anybody's interested in sharing your experience, I sure would be appreciative. Would be so interested to talk with you about it. So. And of course, like in a case like this, I certainly can come up from the bottom. When you're lined up, you're going to be down from the top. And, so, like I said, I've got some ideas on how to make it work well, but certainly, plenty of time looking at a block and starting, in a way that'll make it go smooth will be, I think, even more important, because I'll be cutting the whole thing pretty much. I think, a lot of this ground is really well. Ouch! Big corn operator there. Yeah, a lot of this ground is really well laid out. The roads are, well spaced across the hillside. You're running like, 400 to 700 feet, between roads. And, I think it's going to work really well, but it's going to be a learning curve, I know. Yeah, so anyhow, I kind of chewed my way through this. Worked out well. I'd like I said, I'd walked it, and kind of had an idea, crossed my fingers, climbed that little pitch, kind of getting her started, and getting going on my face now. First pass up the hill. Yeah, this wood is a little bit smaller. And it was quite heavy to alder. It was nice alder, but the alder was small. But the wood had really nice form, and it was tall. Matt there on the processor was really happy. It was just really slick stuff, but it was small. It was the lowest wood on this kind of big block. I think there were 3 roads cutting across the hill above us, and so this one was down at the bottom, and I think that kind of plays into it a little bit, in the wood size. I've kind of noticed that before. This wood was about 40 years old. Yeah, so it was really good. It was good stocking, and it was nice wood. It was just a little bit on the small side. There's always this point, and I'm coming into it, I'm showing it right now, where this is my second pass up the hill. What I call my face is really taking shape. So, I'm cutting uphill and, cutting into the, cutting with my face. I've got it opened up, so I've got a clear fall. And there's that point where you get there, and all of a sudden it's, you're just cutting, and that's always a good feeling. And, again, I just think that some of the, kind of laborious, slow stuff that I do, is to get me to this point as quickly as possible, and then it's just like I can start mowing it, and that's a good feeling. And I had good production on this. I think I put this block on the ground a little over a day, and it was fairly tough ground. This was actually a fairly moderate side of it, but it rolled off pretty hard, kind of behind me as I'm cutting up at this angle here, off to the right behind me. It rolled down into another draw. It was fairly steep, so yeah, it went pretty well. So anyhow, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you find it interesting. Look forward to hearing from you.